Welcome to the deep dive. So, we've got a really crucial stack of sources today, and our mission, I think, is pretty clear.
It is. We need to cut through the information overload on a topic that really matters to public health.
We're talking about the high-dose influenza vaccine versus the standard dose, specifically for adults aged 65 and up.
Right, that's the population where the stakes are highest. I mean, for older adults, a flu shot isn't just about preventing a few sick days.
No, it's about preventing a trip to the hospital.
Exactly. And we already have good evidence that the high-dose vaccine is better at preventing you from, catching lab-confirmed influenza in the first place.
Right, but that's just getting the flu. The real question that's been hanging in the air and why these two huge news sources are so important is about the most severe outcomes.
Hospitalization, death, the things we really worry about.
Does that high-dose superiority actually translate into keeping people out of the emergency room? We need the hard data.
And that data has been tough to get from traditional trials. The outcomes are severe, but they're also, thankfully, pretty rare, so you need massive studies.
Which is where these two sources come in. Both are large, pragmatic, registry-based trials from Europe. Real game changers.
They leverage these incredible national health databases to get the scale they need.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're looking at two head-to-head trials. High dose, or HD, versus standard dose, SD, vaccines. And let's start with the Danish study, because the scale is just breathtaking.
It really is. The Danish trial ran for 3 straight flu seasons, from 2022 all the way through 2025.
And it used nationwide health registries, so the data is about as accurate as it gets.
Right. No need to manually follow up with every single person. They just tracked the official vaccination and hospitalization records for the whole country.
And when you say scale, you mean they randomized 332,438 people aged 65 and older.
That's huge. About 166,000 in each group. The average age was around 73.7 years, so it's squarely focused on that vulnerable population.
So to judge the results, we have to understand what they were measuring. What was the primary endpoint?
The researchers in Denmark chose a composite endpoint. So they were looking for hospitalization for influenza or for pneumonia.
And why combine them like that?
Well, it makes a lot of clinical sense. A severe flu infection is often a major trigger for a serious bacterial pneumonia, so they wanted a single measurement that captured those overall severe respiratory complications.
Okay, that seems logical. So after 3 seasons tracking hundreds of thousands of people, what was the headline result for that crucial combined endpoint?
The headline result was, let's say, underwhelming.
Underwhelming.
Yes. The high-dose vaccine did not show a statistically significant advantage in preventing that combined outcome.
Wow. What were the actual numbers?
The event rate was 0.68% in the high-dose group versus 0.73% in the standard dose group.
So a tiny numerical difference, but in a trial this big, what does that lack of statistical significance really tell us?
It tells us that the small difference they saw could have easily just been due to chance. The relative vaccine effectiveness, or RVE, was only 5.9%.
Only 5.9%.
And with a p-value of 0.14, they just couldn't confidently say that the high dose was better based on that composite endpoint alone.
That sounds like a pretty disappointing top-line result for anyone advocating for the high-dose vaccine.
It does, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
If you only look at that composite headline, you miss the crucial nuance. You miss what's hidden inside the numbers.
You have to pull the components apart.
Absolutely, because that composite number completely masked the massive protective effect the high-dose vaccine had against the disease. It was actually designed to prevent influenza itself.
Okay, so let's break that down. What happens if we look only at hospitalization for confirmed influenza and just set pneumonia aside for a moment?
The picture shifts entirely. It's a dramatic difference.
How dramatic?
The hospitalization rate for influenza dropped from 0.11% in the standard dose group to only 0.06% in the high dose group.
So it basically cut it in half.
Pretty much. The calculated RVE for hospitalization specifically due to influenza was 43.6%.
43.6%. That's a monumental figure.
It is.
Are you essentially saying the high-dose vaccine is almost twice as effective as the standard dose at keeping people with severe flu out of the hospital?
That is exactly the implication. The high-dose vaccine is, without a doubt, much better at preventing the worst outcomes of the flu virus itself.
Which brings us back to the original question. If it's 43.6% better at stopping flu hospitalizations, how did that powerful effect get so diluted in the main result?
The weak link was the other part of the endpoint, pneumonia. When the researchers looked just at hospitalization for pneumonia, the effectiveness was only 0.5%.
0.5, so basically a flat line. No difference at all.
Essentially no difference. And since pneumonia cases made up a much bigger chunk of the total events than influenza cases did, that null result on pneumonia basically dragged the entire composite result down into non-significance.
That makes so much more sense. The way the endpoint was designed, by lumping pneumonia in it, statistically buried this really strong, clear win for the vaccine against the flu virus.
And that's a key lesson for you, the listener. Sometimes the design of a study can cloud the real-world effectiveness of something. The high-dose vaccine did exactly what it was supposed to do against its target, but it just didn't show an effect against that secondary complication.
Just to round out the picture from Denmark, were there any other outcomes they looked at?
Yeah, they looked at a few others. For hospitalization for any cardiorespiratory disease, there was a small but significant benefit, an RVE of 5.7%.
Okay.
For hospitalization for any cause at all, it was just 2.1%. Not very compelling. And crucially, the safety profile was good. Serious adverse events were similar in both groups.
Excellent. So to sum up Denmark, a huge, unequivocal success against hospitalization for influenza, but no statistical win for the main composite outcome because of that null result on pneumonia.
That's the story from Denmark.
Now, let's turn the page and jump across the continent to a separate but equally robust trial in Galicia, Spain.
Right. This second source focused on adults aged 65 to 79 and covered 2 recent flu seasons. It was a little smaller than the Danish one.
But still enormous. Over 103,000 participants.
Exactly. Still massive in scope.
And for the sake of comparison, did they use the same primary endpoint, that composite of hospitalization for flu or pneumonia?
Yes, the exact same definition, which is what makes this so fascinating.
And this is where we see the big disagreement, isn't it? Did the Spanish trial find that the high dose was better for that composite endpoint?
They absolutely did. In direct contrast to the Danish study, the Spanish trial concluded that the high-dose vaccine was superior for the composite primary endpoint.
Wow. So what was the absolute risk?
It was 0.26% in the high-dose group versus 0.34% in the standard dose group.
A clear, statistically significant advantage in Spain where there was none in Denmark.
Yeah.
So what was the final RVE for that combined outcome?
In Spain, the RVE for the composite outcome was 23.7%.
23.7%. That's a direct counterpoint to Denmark's non-significant 5.9%.
It is a major finding.
So let's look at the part they agreed on. Hospitalization just for influenza. What did the Spanish trial find there?
Same story as Denmark. They also confirmed the high-dose vaccine was superior. The RVE there was 31.8%.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, both studies agree the high-dose vaccine is much better at preventing hospitalization from the flu itself. We have 43.6% in Denmark and 31.8% in Spain.
2 massive trials. Same conclusion on that point.
But only the Spanish study saw that benefit carry through to the combined influenza and pneumonia endpoint.
That's the critical juncture. And just to confirm, safety was excellent in Spain, too. Serious adverse events were comparable between the groups. So the focus now really shifts to understanding that divergence.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Let's take a step back. We have 2 gold standard massive European trials. They agree on one huge thing, but they clash dramatically on another.
Right. And I think this means that you, the listener, now possess some really nuanced knowledge. Let's start with the agreement point, because it's the most solid finding here.
Please.
Both trials confirm that the high-dose vaccine provides very robust protection against being hospitalized specifically for influenza. In the real world, that's the primary goal of a flu vaccine.
So this is incredibly valuable for doctors and patients. If you're choosing a vaccine for an older adult, this data says high dose gives you better direct protection against severe flu. Period.
Exactly. But the disagreement point is where the future research is going to be. Why did the Danish trial report a non-significant 5.9% RVE for the composite outcome, while Spain reported a significant 23.7% for the very same thing?
The answer has to be buried somewhere in the pneumonia data.
It has to be. We know Denmark saw basically 0 effect for pneumonia prevention. So if Spain got a significant result on the composite, it implies that the high-dose vaccine did offer some measurable protection against pneumonia hospitalization in the Spanish group.
Which raises a bunch of new questions.
Important questions, right? What was different about the two environments? Was the Spanish population more vulnerable to certain kinds of pneumonia? Were there different non-flu viruses or bacteria causing pneumonia in Denmark versus Spain during those seasons?
That's fascinating. I mean, if the Danish trial happened during a season with a really common non-flu-related bacterial pneumonia, then neither vaccine would have helped against those cases.
And that would effectively hide the benefit of the high-dose vaccine, whereas maybe the Spanish population or the season was more susceptible to secondary pneumonia that's actually triggered by the flu.
And in that case, the high-dose vaccine's benefit could really shine through.
That's a key piece of critical thinking. The difference just highlights how complex it is to study these composite endpoints across different regions and seasons. The data shows high dose is superior at preventing the illness it's designed to target from landing you in the hospital.
And the Spanish results provide that encouraging real-world data showing that those benefits aren't always statistically drowned out by the noise of other illnesses.
That's the application right there.
That's a fantastic look at both sets of data. So you, our listener, are now armed with the specific statistics and the context to understand these nuances. Thank you for joining this deep dive.
And maybe we can leave you with one final provocative thought to consider.
Please do.
Since both of these massive trials proved, with high confidence, that the high-dose vaccine significantly reduces hospitalizations specifically for influenza, the real question for health policy is this. Is the failure of the Danish composite result a reason to doubt the vaccine?
War?
Or is it just a cautionary tale about how sensitive trial endpoints can be to local conditions, and a reminder that strong, consistent results in the 30s and 40s for the target illness itself should probably be what guides our clinical practice?